Hey, everybody. Welcome to EverydayFI. I'm your host, Meghan Combs, and I'm here to say that you do not need a $1 million book deal or a famous blog to reach financial independence. By exploring the lives of everyday people pursuing FI, I'll show you how to forge your own path to financial freedom the everyday way. If you'd like to support the show, check out my Patreon at patreon.com/everydayfi podcast for ad-free and bonus content every single month. Today, I am with Casey, and Casey actually reached out to me because she is also in the messy middle, or the boring middle, like we like to say, as I am. So I would love her to share her story, because a lot of us are in that messy middle, and oftentimes we hear about the people who've already reached FI, and I think it's good to hear people who are in the middle. So, hey, Casey, how are you doing? Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Megan. I am doing very well. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk to some folks about the boring middle.
Tell me about your life and your family. If you want to share where you live, what your job is, things like that. You can tell me whatever you want to.
I'm from Minnesota originally. I live in Wisconsin now. I have pretty much entire adult life. I'm married. I don't have any children. My hubby and I built a house here several years ago. I work in technology. I don't have one of the exciting jobs in technology that pay a lot of money like most people do who are in this community. I work post-sales in customer success, and I do a lot of operational work. So you had gone on Choose FI, I think it was last summer, and I heard your episode with Brad, and it really inspired me to come on and tell a story about being in the boring middle, because I don't think we hear enough from people in the community who are in this spot. And so I really loved hearing your story and share a little bit about my background and the hole I clawed myself out of once I found financial independence. I just wanted to come on and chat about that and hopefully inspire somebody else to keep going, because your story really inspired me and made me not feel so alone in this endeavor.
Oh, thank you for saying that. I think I actually had a conversation with Ginger. I wasn't lucky enough to talk with Brad, but yeah, Ginger and I were chatting. I think it's funny, in their recap episode of last year, she talked about that episode and how I started asking her questions, and she felt very uncomfortable. And I was like, oops. Because I was like challenging her. And I was like, well, that's because I'm also a podcaster. So I'm so used to just asking questions. So yeah, thank you for saying that. That's really nice. I see that you wrote raw honesty, and I was like, oh God, what did I say in that interview? I need to go back and look at it. Like, what did I say that was raw?
You know what it was?
Yeah.
It was literally, you said that you hated working, that you've never felt connected to work, and that just wasn't something you enjoyed. And I had never really heard anyone just come out and say that. And I have felt the same way about work my entire life. I want to feel differently about work. That's part of the journey I'm on right now, actually. But that's what it was. Your raw honesty in that episode was just your disdain for work and how you were getting through it.
I know whenever they talk about, oh, if you reach financial independence and the only thing you want to do is sit on a beach and drink margaritas or something, or watch your favorite TV shows all the time, then that's not why you reach FI. And I'm like, why not? Sounds great. And sure, like, yeah, maybe you'll get bored with that, but that doesn't mean you have to go and work again. That just means you add other things into your life. Like, oh, maybe you want to garden, or maybe you want to volunteer or something. It doesn't mean that you add work back in. It means you add other things back in that are more enjoyable, or you go hiking or traveling more. I just thought that was funny. And I was like, I actually envy the people who enjoy their jobs, who are like, I can't imagine stopping working because I love my job so much. I'm like, really? Really?
Same. How do I get that? Am I an alien? Are you an alien? What's happening?
Yeah, I'm like, is there something broken in here?
Agreed. And I don't want to like jump the gun here, but part of my journey is like, I'm shifting gears where I'm like, I'm over this chase FI to chase FI thing. It's exciting and I want the freedom, and obviously there's value in it. I'm not overlooking that. But my goal changed in all of this, where it's like, I want to find work that I don't want to leave. If I could find that, that would be incredible.
I love that as a goal though, because a lot of people who are pursuing FI are doing the away moves, which is what we call in therapy, by the way. In my group therapy, we're doing the away moves and the towards moves. That's our weekly exercise this week. And you are doing the toward. You're like, I am pursuing FI, yes, but I'm also going towards something else, and that's trying to find a job that I enjoy. So in that process, what have you kind of discovered? What approach are you taking to try and figure that out?
I had hired a career coach back in, gosh, I want to say this was 2 years ago now. So I went through and I spent some coin on this, several $1,000s, and it was about a 2-month program. And the concept of the program was to really get you to look inward to what circumstances you had thrived in previous work, to really pull out the individual components of the things that work for you, the things that you've done well, your skills, your interests, your passions, your, I don't know, your hell yeah criteria. Like, I'll never put up with this in a workplace. I will always put up with this in a workplace. Your salary requirements. So it really creates this holistic picture of all the things that you should be thinking about and looking at when you're pursuing a career change. And so that was kind of the start of my, I guess, journey into it. I still look at that work. I haven't landed on the thing I want to move toward, but I do keep getting hung up on the financial aspects of it, truthfully. I'd like to do something more creative. I'm a very creative soul in here, and I'm not honoring that. So part of something we can talk about a little bit later. I don't want to, again, just jump in the gun, but I found another way to really reflect inwardly and really discover who I am kind of inherently to my core, and tap into that concept, if you will, and just learn who I am, because there's a lot of layers to this journey. It's not just about my career and finding work. It's about uncovering and discovering who I am as a person. That's something I've lost touch with over the years. I found in my life through many avenues that if I not focus on one thing, but I focus on this adjacent thing that kind of fuels this other change I want in my life, that tends to be when I find the most success. For example, I had lost a whole bunch of weight, not because I was trying to lose weight, because I was trying to fix some anxiety I was experiencing. I overhauled my diet, I started exercising, and I lost 55 pounds. That's crazy. And I wasn't even trying. So just as an example of, if I can focus on me and my inherent self and my skills and my traits and what I'm here to give the world, maybe then this career thing will be a result of that work. So that's kind of the approach that I'm taking. It was a long-winded answer to your question, but it's multifaceted, I will say that.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. And so follow up to that is, how are you figuring out who you are? And I'm very curious about this because I swear we're the same person. I struggle with that. I went to this Extraordinary Life event in Richmond with the Donegans a couple weeks ago, and Brad was there. And one of their exercises was trying to come up with your identity. And I struggled with that because there are a lot of things that I am, but that aren't my identity. And I'm like, is my identity that I don't have an identity, or that I don't like having an identity? I don't like things that are very final, and this is who I am and I will never change this. Obviously you can change your identity, but it's hard to change your identity. And I'm like, I'm blonde and blue-eyed. That's as identity as I can get because I don't really have one. It shifts a lot. That's why I'm curious, is it the career coach that helped you do that, or are you doing other things to help you in this journey with discovering who you are?
No, it's a good question. I'm actually doing other things. I will say, just quick on the identity piece, I've read that about identity, where if you hone in too much on the term identity and what an identity means, it can prevent folks from still exploring and understanding other aspects of their life, right? Where you get so tied into this identity that you may fall into a scenario where you're not open to potential other things that could be what your identity is. So that's just something I've read about it as I've been on this journey. Obviously, I've been doing a lot of my own research and digging into different resources. That was one thing I read that stuck out to me as I was trying to figure out my own identity. But moving on to your other question, what I came across is a concept called human design. Are you familiar with this?
No, not at all.
Okay, I wasn't either. My youngest sister had brought this up to me on a vacation about a month ago. And her yoga instructor was a human design reader and just brought this concept up to my sister. And she went through the process and basically told me about it. And I was like, huh, that sounds like something that I could use in my life. So I started just doing my own research and looked somebody up locally that I could connect with and learn more about it. And the first thing I did was I just Googled human design, found somebody, like I said, she's actually up in Minnesota. Went on her website. There's a chart that you put in your birth information, location, name, time of birth, and it creates what's known as a chart. And this is kind of the core piece and concept of human design. And just to back up a second on what human design is, and this is just my own interpretation. So if folks are interested in this, you should definitely do your own research. But it's kind of this confluence of spirituality and science, astrology mixed in there, some kind of ancient Chinese spirituality, quantum mechanics. So it's this combination of things that basically identifies, based on your birth information, your key skills, your key traits and gifts, your strengths in your life, and what you're designed to contribute to the world. And again, that's just my interpretation as I'm learning this. So I want people to understand I'm just a month or a couple weeks into learning what this is. But many people are trained to do this and can create a chart and can talk about it and have lots of podcasts and information out in the world. So there's a lot of people that you can get this information from. But I started listening to her podcast specifically and her chart and just went through kind of her strategy around all of this. What I've learned so far has been alarmingly spot on with who I am. And having gone through the career coaching component that I did, I'm already super in tune, especially with some of that gift and skill stuff, because that was part of the work, right? Dig into it, figure out where your skills are, what your passions are, that type of stuff. So there's been alarmingly just this number of overlap consistencies of that type of work that I had already done. And it goes much, much deeper than that, though. That's kind of one piece of it. And the core concept around it is actually our energy type. And so this is very much about energy and how energy flows through us and how we can understand that energy, how we can understand our strategy and how I'm supposed to respond to things that come my way versus seeking things out. And it talks about this authority that governs how we're supposed to make decisions. So this goes much deeper than just, these are my skills and this is what I should do. It really helps holistically a person get in tune with all of the things that make us up and that can drive us toward fulfillment and total alignment in our life, because that's where I'm stuck in life, is I just feel misaligned, right? I feel misaligned in my job. I feel misaligned in my relationships. I'm just not fulfilled and things aren't as joyful as I would like them to be, right? So I'm looking for some change. And my identity for myself are just the things that I've gone through, the losses, the grief, the anxiety, just the experiences I've had in my life have fundamentally changed me as a human being. So this is the perfect time for me to stumble on something like this, because it's helping me rediscover kind of who I am and get reconnected with myself. So that was kind of a long explanation. And again, this is my interpretation of what I'm learning so far about myself and this woman's kind of program and podcast that I'm learning through.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. It's not something I would probably gravitate towards, but it's something that I know a lot of people would probably find really helpful, because I've been in therapy for over 10 years and I still struggle with identity and trying to figure that out. And really in therapy, that's not necessarily what you're doing. You're basically tackling specific anxieties. Like you were mentioning, you have anxieties. I also have anxieties. You tackle things like that. Things like, okay, here was your history of trauma and how it affects you as an adult and how you can reframe your emotional reactions and maybe temper them because you know it's coming from this place, and have a compassion for yourself and things like that. But yeah, I know that this might help other people to do something like this. I know you said you were just learning about this, but you said it was just your birthday, but is there any other information that you give them? Because I do find it a little hard to believe that they can pinpoint exactly who you are from your birthday. I find that very hard to believe, but I was wondering, do they have other things that go into it? I know you said you just started this 2 weeks ago, so it's okay if you don't know. But yeah, I'm very curious about that.
So it's your birth information. So it's your birth date, your time of birth, and your location of birth. And this is where the astrology piece comes into it, right? It has to do with planetary alignment and things like that. So I get it. I was actually just talking to my other sister, my brother-in-law about this, and he was like, this is all hocus pocus. There's no way anybody knows anything about who you are because of how the planets align. And I'm like, hey man, that's totally your thing. If you're cool in your life and you're not trying to work on you and maneuver through identifying who you are and what you can contribute to the world, I appreciate that. I get that. It's kind of aligned on that component of it. So it's just your birth information. It's alarmingly just pretty spot on. This is more so another lens that I can just place over what I already know about myself, what I've already felt and thought and think. And to some degree, just validate some of that. But it's also helped me work through some of my fears that I've personally had. It's helped me identify that I struggle with fear in some ways. And it helps you recognize that when you're not living kind of in tune with your inherent self, you're actually creating blocks where you almost can't move forward. So it's just a lens. That's all that this is for me.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm of the mind, whether or not you believe it, let people have their things. Unless they're getting grifted into something that's harmful, I'm like, do what you want. My mom is super into transcendental meditation. It is not my thing. She loves it. It makes her happy. Great. Then she should do it. So yeah, I don't agree with your brother-in-law. You should do what you want to do, and you should do what is calling to you, in my opinion. So yeah, thanks for sharing that with us. And let me know if you have any links that you want to share, like this woman's podcast or anything. I can put them in the show notes if people are curious. Anything you want to say about that before we move on?
I would just Google it. I don't want to steer people towards one person. I really think people should dig in. This is the kind of thing where do your own research and figure it out. You can Google this concept. And like I said, as I've dug into it and I'm just trying to learn more about it, there is so much information available out there. So that would be my advice, is if sounding like you're in a similar spot and looking for another lens to place over your life, just Google it. You'll come across some info and learn it for yourself.
Lovely. Yeah. I like the it's another lens idea. It's cool. Okay. So let's dig into your money history. Let's dig into that lens. I love the idea of lenses. It's so funny. Sorry, this is a tangent, but I'm trying to figure out how to tell the story of financial trauma through the lens of my fertility journey and how I can communicate that to other people who might not be going through fertility issues, but might be going through other sorts of trauma that affects their financial life. And I'm having a really hard time using the fertility as a lens versus just the story. And so when you said lens, I was like, ooh, now I want to like noodle on this. Sorry for the tangent, but that's why I'm hooking on to that word right there.
That's great, by the way. Truthfully, I think that's amazing that you're doing that. And I've tuned into a little bit of your story, and good for you for sharing. That's the whole reason I'm here too. If we can all just share and help each other, why not? Let's do it.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. Cool. Okay. So when you look back on your life as a kid growing up, even if you don't necessarily remember specific money stories or things like that, now that you're an adult and you have a sense of what goes into finances and household finances, looking through your childhood with that lens, do you see any patterns or anything that stick out to you?
Yeah, so I definitely adopted, I would say, my dad's kind of money patterns, I would say, because I'm a spender. And I do remember my dad being more of a spender and my mom being more of the, I'll say, responsible parent with money. But I would say that's the philosophy I've adopted, is coming into adulthood and my own reflection of my money habits. I'm definitely a spender through and through. I don't remember growing up talking a lot about money. It just wasn't part of my upbringing and how I'm going to move into adulthood. And I didn't fully come into adulthood understanding the role that money would play in my life, I think is how I would put it.
Yeah. So then that leads me to, like, as a young adult, how did you go about learning about money? Was it the hard way or did you find a book or something? Yeah. I'd love to hear that journey.
So I went to college. I deferred debt. Yay. But I was a spender even in college. I loved clothes shopping. I was super into fashion. So I accumulated my fair share of the debt that they'll give a credit card to a young person is insane to me. But that was kind of the beginning of my money story. It wasn't from just spending and not really understanding the consequences of those actions, right? I remember when I was in college. Oh my gosh, I have such bad money habits when I was younger. But I remember when I was in college, I had to call my sister one day and ask her to pay my cell phone bill because my paycheck wasn't going to come in time for me to pay my cell phone bill. I had bad money habits.
I did that a lot with my mom. So in college, I was like, Mom, can you transfer me some money? Because I overspent and now I can't pay my bills. Yeah.
I think I was too embarrassed to call my mom or she'd tell me no. So I had to call my little sister who bailed me out. Thanks, sis. Appreciate it. It wasn't until, gosh, many years later. So obviously I went through college. I got my dad, my now husband, we met in college. So it wasn't until him and I started our life together and my finances became merged with somebody else that I really understood the consequences of my money habits. I actually remember him giving me $100 to open a savings account. Like I didn't have one. I had a checking account. I did not have a savings account. So like savings just wasn't on my mind. It just wasn't something that I thought to do, I knew to do, or I understood the importance of doing. When him and I got married, we were going to buy a house. We wanted to buy a house and we went to the bank, we got our credit score, we got all of that information. Your credit scores kind of dictate the interest rate you'll get. The housing market was at the start of starting to be crazy. This was back in 2013. So I think it was far enough away from '08 where I think people were getting to like, oh, okay, we could buy a house, or like houses are still affordable.
Yeah. Were the interest rates super low at that point too? Because I forget what the interest rates were doing in 2013 because I was living in New York City and paycheck to paycheck, I could not buy anything. So I have no idea what the interest rates were. But wasn't that when they were sub 3? Because the housing market had just crashed. And so they were trying to get you to buy houses. They weren't giving you $400,000 loans for a $50,000 salary type of thing anymore. So yeah, it looks like the average rates were like 3.4 to 3.6 in early 2013. So they did raise to 4.5 by late summer, it said, for 30-year fixed mortgages. And then they just stayed that way until 2022 when they started going up. So yeah, good to know.
Well, that's interesting because I always wondered. I even looked back for our bank statements. I was like, man, did we hang on to that? I'd love to look back and see what our interest rates were. But all I remember about that time is that my credit score was low enough that it was pushing us into an interest rate that was pushing us into not as affordable of a home as we wanted to. So that was my first wake up call. I know I was a bit of an anchor. And I was like, oh, hell no, I'm not going to be a financial anchor for me and our life together and what we're trying to accomplish. So this was 2013. I mean, a switch, Megan, just went off and I was like, I'm done. Obviously, getting debt free was my approach and my plan to get myself into a better credit score.
So why was debt the thing that you wanted to focus on?
I suspect it had to do with, we probably asked the people at the bank. I remember really loving our bank lady, our banker. And she probably either said it or it made the most sense. She probably explained to me what the indicators are that generate your credit score and how much debt available to you versus the debt you have spent. But that's one of the indicators that impacts your credit score. So that's probably why I don't specifically remember, but I suspect that that's why. We had some savings at this point because we had gotten married and we had mostly gotten cash gifts for our weddings. We had quite a bit in savings from that. And my husband's a saver, so he had some money saved up. The debt situation was probably the one thing that was really, really holding us back. So I put all of my debts into a spreadsheet and using the avalanche method, it took me 4 years and I paid, it was about $40,000 worth of debt. That was a combination of student loans. I had an auto loan at the time and consumer debt. And obviously my student loans were the biggest part of that. But using the avalanche method, I paid off all of that debt in 4 years. And I will say, for people who maybe are in the lower earning category or point in time of their life, I was making $15 an hour at that point. I had quit my job because I was in retail and I hated it. So I just took the first job that could come my way. I was a college grad with only a couple years of experience, and the job market was not fun given the economy at that time. So I was only making $15 an hour when I started this process. It can be done. Proof right here that with some determination, you can start this process and really hammer out a lot of debt in a short period of time. That was a lot of debt. And that was, oh my God, it sucked. I was so hyper focused on it. I just remember going into the spreadsheet every time I get paid and like, what did I pay off? And the second I pay something else off, I just put that towards the next thing. So it's probably one of the things I'm the most proud of, just thinking about my money story in general, like just being able to get in there and pay that debt off. And it really catapulted us into some savings. So this all took place from about 2013 to 2017. And at this time, I still wouldn't find FI for another 4 years. So we just started saving money at that point. And we had a bunch of money saved up because we were planning to build a house. We tried to buy a house, and every time we would increase our budget, the market would just slowly creep, and we just couldn't catch up. We couldn't catch up with what we wanted because we wanted to live in the country. We were both born and raised in the country, so that was important to us, and it just wasn't working out for us.
Did you cut out your lattes? Did you cut out your avocado toast? Couldn't that have helped? That was sarcasm, by the way, if people weren't recognizing it.
Because at that point, if I wasn't on my radar, you know what I mean? I was just like, oh, I'm debt free now. I should have a better credit score, and now I should be able to buy a house. That was my narrow focus at the time, right? But in 2022, after I found FI, yeah, oh my gosh, I did a whole spending tracker for a year. And
yeah, I really want to hear about this part. Like I said, you wrote into me, and that was the part that you said you did a total overhaul of your finances. I really want to know how your husband felt about that. Was he on board? Was he like, what the heck is going on? Tell me that story. Tell me that juiciness. If there is any juiciness, maybe there's nothing. Maybe your husband was like, yeah, let's do it. So yeah, I'd love to hear that.
no, it's interesting. It took him a little time to get really jazzed about the potential outcome. I don't think he believed it at first. I was following a woman on LinkedIn, and I had found The Simple Path. She had recommended some books. I loved the way she talked about money. I'd never heard anyone talk about money the way that she did. And she told her story about being in debt. And she told us about all the credit cards that she racked up and how she clawed her way out of debt. And that resonated with me because I had already done that at that point.
Who was it?
Jennifer Welsh.
Jennifer Welsh. Okay.
She was helping women entrepreneurs at the time through her own business on LinkedIn. I don't know if she still does that, but that was kind of why I was following her. I think I was getting older too, and I hadn't saved for retirement. And like, I really need to get saving for retirement. So I think I was starting to look for information on the internet about what can I accomplish here. And LinkedIn was the only social media I had at the time. So it was around the holidays, and she had a list of books. She's like, hey, if you're looking for a college grad or somebody to get a gift for, or somebody in your life you care about, these would be some books I'd recommend. And The Simple Path to Wealth was one of them. So I read that and did some more research, and I read Quit Like a Millionaire by Christy Chan. And I was like, oh my goodness, I went balls to the wall. That hooked me. And I was like, this is possible, right? So I kind of knew in my mind, I had committed to the fact that this was possible and this was a choice and I could do it. To get my husband on board, he was open-minded to it for sure, but he didn't jump in on it like I did, right? The result for him wasn't like an immediately obvious, like, okay, this is a thing. Maybe this will happen. Maybe this won't happen. We had gotten into our mortgage at this time, and we had a sub 3% interest rate. We didn't right away. We had the 3.875, but we were able to refinance within a year of getting our mortgage and drop a whole nother percentage point. So then we are at a 2.875 interest rate. Those days are behind us.
Now?
Yes.
Oh my God. You're probably going to stay there forever, I bet.
Well, yeah, we built a house on some land he grew up on. So like we knew when we built this house.
Oh yeah. Then that's awesome.
It is awesome. We feel very fortunate, especially because we finished construction in 2019, and then COVID happened within a year of that. And then everything went bananas. Our timing was insanely fortunate, honestly. Yeah.
And you had this nice, beautiful home to stay in all the time, shut inside.
Yeah.
I guess at least you had land. That's nice.
We did. Honest to God. Yeah, we're very fortunate. That is not lost on me. Very grateful for that opportunity. And I understand not everybody has that, but doesn't mean we can't all meet our goals. Because at the time we were putting money towards our mortgage. We were, oh my God, I know people are just going to gasp right now. This is not even the worst of all of our financial faux pas over the years, but we were putting money toward our mortgage. Like he really wanted to pay our mortgage down. And in retrospect, I'm glad that we did on the early couple years of it that we had our mortgage. I'm glad that we put some extra money toward it.
I will say though, just to, I don't know, validate your feelings. When I look at our expenses, and I have Monarch, and if anybody has Monarch in the app, when you go to the cash flow, it's a bar chart and it's the horizontal bar chart that shows all the expenses, right? And our mortgage is way out in front of everything else. It is the longest bar by a mile. And so when I see that, I'm like, man, it'd be really nice not to have a mortgage. But I know it doesn't make sense to pay it down. My mortgage is 5%, which is not high, it's not low, it's in that weird middle kind of where we could, but I still think probably the market is probably better. But it does, I can see the psychological effect it's having. I'm like, if this mortgage was gone, neither of us would have to work. And so I can see why people do that. So I just wanted to say that and say it makes sense to me personally.
For sure. Right. The debate's all over the FI community. You can see people posting out on Facebook and having this conversation. And interestingly, we've recently had this conversation again where we were talking about our retirement plans and thought, gosh, it would be nice not to have our mortgage if we want to coast fire or whatever we want to do at some point when we're ready and have the funds to do so. But man, I can't get past it. I want to invest more for myself.
I do want to talk about one strategy that I think might be helpful. And I don't know if you've come across this strategy, so I'm curious what you think of it. I think Joe Saul-Sehy on Afford Anything is the one that I heard this from, but I'm sure it's out there from other people. Okay. Instead of actually putting that extra payment toward your mortgage, put it in a brokerage account and invest it. Do that for 10 years. And after the end of 10 years, take that sum and pay down or off your mortgage. And the reason why you do that is because you get the growth. You're in for long enough to where you don't have risk of the market being down when you want to pull it out. You also have the option of not paying it off and just keeping that money in there and keeping it growing, or you have the option to then pay your mortgage down with a much higher sum than if you put it towards your mortgage. So I really like that as kind of a middle ground of like, you are putting extra, but you're not actually putting it towards your mortgage. You're putting it into an account that's growing faster than that interest rate. So I'm curious if you've come across that or what you think of it.
I haven't come across that. And it's so funny. I just felt a mental block when I was hearing you say that, where I'm like, no, that money is not for the mortgage. That money's for retirement. My little gremlin in there was piping up hard about that. But that's one thing I love about this community is different strategies and different thoughts. That's something I'll ponder because my husband might be interested in doing that. If he's got extra cash he wants to stick away and that's its purpose, great. And I think that's one thing that my mind has really changed now just on this topic is the purpose of all of our dollars, right? We do bucket, right? We've got our buckets for our different spend. And man, I think it probably is more so like mentally, I just can't get to a point where I'm willing to put any money in any account that's potentially for my mortgage. I'm realizing I have a big block about this as we're talking through it. But someday I will, right? Someday we'll get our savings to a certain point where I'm like, okay, let's be more strategic and think a little bit more long-term about not having this mortgage and get putting some money toward it. So I'll definitely share that strategy with him because like I said, he might be more interested in that if he's got extra funds that he's willing to put into a separate bucket and stick toward the mortgage. So thank you for sharing that. So that was probably the biggest thing to get him on board with it was just that shifting away from putting money towards the mortgage and getting it all invested. But he did it. I moved all my funds I did have in our Roth. That's the other part of my story, guys, is like, I didn't have access to a 401k for the first several years of my working life, which really hurt me. If I'd had access to a 401k, I knew enough that I needed to save for retirement. Why that was this one thing in the back of my mind, but it was. Maybe it was in some educational class or somebody said something to me. I don't remember where that information came from, but I knew in the back of my mind I needed to be saving for retirement. I just didn't have access to a 401k and I had no idea what a Roth IRA was until I figured it out at one point and slowly started contributing. So yeah, Once I got all my stuff moved over and I got us set up with high yield savings accounts, got our money out of our bank account, because Lordy, at this point, we still had our money sitting in our bank account right downtown. So we got our high yield savings account set up, and he was totally on board with all of that. He didn't care that I was moving our finances in this direction. He didn't put up any restrictions or anything about it. He eventually actually also moved his funds over to Vanguard. So I think it was a slow roll with him, but there wasn't a lot of resistance I had to get over once we moved past the mortgage component of it. But what's funny is that as time has gone on, he'll ask me, he's like, can we retire yet? No, dude.
That's how you get them. That's how you get them, because you're like, don't you want to quit your terrible job sooner than 65? That's how I got my husband on board. It's not that he's not into it. He doesn't come to any of the FI events with me, and people always ask me at the FI events, like, why not? Is he not into this? I'm like, no, he's totally down. He just doesn't want to talk about it all the time. But he will say, can we quit yet? How far are we? Where are we at? Can I go to the part-time yet? Can I go down to a job that I enjoy more? That's what we're trying to get for him. So I quit work, and we're trying to go down to a lower paid job that he enjoys more, because right now he's in a higher paying, very cushy job that is for probably the next 3 to 5 years, unfortunately, just because children and stuff like that. But it will be a full-time job, but it will be a lower paying job. So I get it. And it's funny because I say 3 to 5 years, but I bet it's shorter. I really do. I bet it's shorter, because we're still actually saving money, even though I've quit my job, which is funny because we're technically not supposed to, but he gets a 6% match. And I'm like, we can't give that up. That's free money. And so that's 12%. And the standard, what you're supposed to save.
No, I think that's adorable, right? My husband's the same way. I've tried to tell him now. I used to run the numbers for him, and I would be like, okay, let me look it up. Let's see where we are. And I'm like, no, here's an investment calculator. Go use this one. I love nerd wallets. That one's my favorite. Go use this investment calculator, and here's how you figure this out. So that's my next step with this, is I'm just trying to baby step him into running the numbers. I love it though. It's good. We're definitely excited about the potential for the other side of FI. That's for darn sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how did you find financial independence? You found it in 2021, right? And this is COVID. So were you just bored and looking online? How did you find it? And who was the first person to get you into it?
It was J.L. Collins and The Simple Path to Wealth, for sure. So it was Jennifer Welch, the woman I had mentioned on her LinkedIn. I was following her content, and she had posted the gift idea for a couple books to give. And it was The Simple Path to Wealth. And she also suggested The Psychology of Money. So I bought both of those right away, but I didn't end up reading The Psychology of Money until a little bit later. But oh my gosh, I went down a rabbit hole. So after I had read The Simple Path to Wealth and Quit Like a Millionaire, I think I found every single book on financial independence possible. I bought Sadie's I'll Teach You to Be Rich. That's a really good one for folks starting out, especially his chapter on automation, because I hadn't had my money automated at that point. That was a really good one. I have donated them to the library since, but oh my gosh, I found Catching Fire or Chasing Fire. There were so many books that I just went crazy. In fact, I had a period of resentment once I found the concept of financial independence. We had just built our house. We weren't even 2 years into our mortgage. And I was like, man, we were debt free. We had saved a pile of cash to put down on our house. And we ended up self-generaling our build. We hired an Amish contractor to build our home. And so we were very involved in the process, even from a liquid money standpoint. We were kind of were the bank. We would pay them, and we'd do all the draws and get the money back from the title company and all of that. So we were very, very involved with our build. So it's a good thing we had that pile of cash. But I was like, dang, if we'd have just not built this house or built the way we did, we could have taken that pile of cash and invested it, and we'd be so much further ahead in our journey. And so I went through a period of extreme excitement and digging into all the content, and also a period of just, I was angry. I was angry about the choices, just not having the information, and just feeling a bit resentful. I have obviously since moved past that. That was not a productive place to be, but that was just my emotions at the time with it, right? Where I felt like we had a missed opportunity to really just pour gasoline on our potential financial future if we'd have made other choices, and we did.
I think that's common, though. I bet you there's so many people nodding their heads right now. They're like, yep, 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 yep. When I found this, it was later than I wanted to. Even if people are finding it at 25, they're like, man, I wish I found this at 18, you know? I found it at 2019. So I was 32, 31. So I'm like, man, I wish I would have found this earlier. And of course, there's the whole catching up to FI, that entire genre that got very popular of people finding this in their like 40s and 50s and even 60s sometimes. So it's very common. And I'm glad you didn't stay in that place. You let yourself feel it and then you moved on. So that's awesome. And if anybody's in that place and still feeling it, it's probably best to move on because you can't go back in time. You only had the information you had at the time. Like you made the best choice that you could. And you kind of have to have grace for your past self. They did the best they could, right? So yeah, I like that you said that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And for most people, building a house wouldn't be the end of the thing. But for us, it's not like we could just sell the thing and move on. We had committed to growing old in our house. We designed it ourselves. We designed it to grow old into it. We were very thoughtful about the whole situation. But for folks that are still feeling that way, like nothing's permanent for the most part. You can make changes. And yeah, not a productive place to be in. But looking back on it, a lot of growth has happened and all of that learning. So it's all good. But this is something I'd love to connect with other people on too, is yes, I'm in the boring middle. Yes, I'm still saving, but I'm also struggling with being in a role that I feel really connected to, that I feel is bringing me a lot of joy. I feel very misaligned with the work that I'm doing. I keep putting a lot of pressure at myself to like make more money so I can save more money. And I'm trying to balance. And in the midst of all of that, I managed to reduce my hours at work. I'm only working 32 hours a week right now, but so I'm kind of taking the opposite direction a little bit, but trying to do that in the vein of figuring out what I actually want to do with my life and this pursuit of meaningful work. So that's kind of where I'm deviating just maybe a little bit.
The middle part of it, which we can call it the boring middle, but it shouldn't be the boring middle. This is your life right now, present. And the best thing to do is try to make it as enjoyable as possible. I think giving up your now for future FI status is really an unfortunate trend that has happened in the FI community. And I feel like we're righting that wrong. More people are like, actually, wait a second. I don't just want to eat ramen and beans every night and live in my mom's basement. There's that one guy, Extreme FI or whatever his name is. I'm not even going to link him in the show notes because I don't want you guys to look at him, but he lives on $7,000 a year, or he did. I don't know if he does anymore. Who wants to live like that? That's just so that you don't work. That's not enjoyable. It's much better to find something that you enjoy and get paid for. And then that is the middle, and it's the fun middle. You're still going towards FI, but now it's the fun middle, or it's the enjoyable middle, or it's the meaningful middle, or it's the purposeful middle, whatever you want to call it. But I think the boring middle sucks, and I want to get away from that.
Yeah, I agree with you. Life is happening right now, regardless of where my freaking FI number's at. Life's happening. My mindset has shifted. It's actually kind of weird. In a very short period of time, I found this, and within 3 months, I was like, done. Our finances are completely overhauled. I totally think about money differently. And what was that, 3 years ago? So 3 years now on the backside of it, I'm just like, okay, I'm ready to take a different approach to figuring out my life and what I want out of it. So I'm kind of on a swing on the opposite direction, right? It's been several years since I overhauled our finances. I got super committed to FI. Like we were maxing out our 401ks. We were doing all the things. I did a whole year's worth of spending so I could really figure out our FI number, which is total BS now. It's irrelevant given the world and where it is. But it gave us a really good baseline and helped me figure out if I did want to cut out my lattes, which I wasn't drinking, but whatever my thing was at the time. But during all of this process too, I've been on a health journey. And so I was diagnosed with a autoimmune thyroid disease. And at the time I had asked my doctor, I'm like, is there anything I can do to really try to correct this or stop this from happening in my own life, in my dietary, whatever, in my life? And the doctor was like, no. So I actually found functional medicine in this time, which really changed my entire perspective about health in general and our medical system. And I learned that I could potentially stop my body's immune system from attacking my thyroid, which is what's happening. Eventually, someday, my immune system could potentially make my thyroid inert, like it'll stop working, just completely atrophy, be done. So I discovered is there are some markers in our blood that we can monitor to see what's happening with that. And I learned and discovered that I can actually influence that because of the response that's happening in our body. And so when I started going to functional medicine, it's not covered by insurance. I was paying out of pocket for all those tests and all of that medical information that I wanted. I was seeking out because I wanted a different answer than what my doctor had given me. So at that point, I had stopped maxing out our 401k. This has been kind of a slow trickle over the last maybe 3 years of just reallocating some of my funds to my health and how I'm looking at my health and going through functional medicine and just paying out of pocket for those costs. And I didn't have an HSA or anything at the time to use any of that. So it was strictly out of pocket, which was fine. I was happy to do it. But that was my first deviation, right? Of, okay, this is important to me. I'm going to stop saving so much because I'm going to need some of this money to put elsewhere towards my health. And that all shifted, and I've been moving things around and flexing how much I save, which I love, is we all have the flexibility to do that. But the next thing, which is more recent, is I had reduced my hours at work. And this is what we were talking earlier about, just not feeling aligned and needing some time to just get in tune with myself. I don't want to just start another job search. I don't want to do that. I don't see that as getting me to any different place than I'm at right now with my job. I've worked for my company for over 5 years. I work for a good company. This is not the problem. It's a very healthy work environment. It's just, I've outgrown my job. There's not a growth path for me. I don't love our technology. It's very complex, which is the nature of it. And it's an important life safety technology. So like, this is nothing, it just is what it is, right? So I went to my boss and was like, hey, can I take a leave of absence? I just need some time to focus on me and not be distracted by work in my life and all the things. And they were like, sure, you can take one, but you gotta have the paperwork. You've got to give us a reason that you're taking a leave. I couldn't get that information from my therapist that I was seeing at the time. So they gave me an alternative to just reduce my hours. So I'm like, okay, I'll try that. I'll try reducing my hours and see if I can use that time to really focus on me and give back to me a little bit and what I'm trying to discover for myself and move forward in my life. But a leave of absence would have been a very different, I think, use of time than what I'm able to do now with having reduced my hours. But I did that back in August. And so obviously that came with a pay cut, right? Like a 20% hours reduction came with a 20% pay reduction. So I've really reduced my saving at this point, and it feels counterproductive in some ways towards my FI journey. And I'm really starting to feel that now that I'm looking back at the numbers, and I'm in this total conflict right now with my financial priorities, but just this inherent knowing that I need to do something different in my career. So I will say it's the messy middle for me right now, right? With just trying to balance those priorities. But finding meaningful work for the long term is something I think is worth the short term sacrifice to pursue.
Yeah, that is messy. I know, because I did take the leave of absence. It's the super long-term sabbatical. Jillian Johnsrud talks about mini retirements, and I'm going to be going on her show soon to talk about mine. And I'm like, mine's not really a mini retirement. Mine's like a moderate retirement, because I'm not planning on going back to work for several years. And eventually I probably will. It'll probably be part-time or something. And in the meantime, I'll like volunteer or take care of the kids whenever they're here. And people keep asking me, how is it? Is it life-changing? And I'm like, it's been 2 months. So I'm just trying to get my bearings right now. But I don't think I would be able to find what's meaningful to me while I'm dealing with a job that takes up 80% of my focus, 80% of my brain, because you're not just thinking at work, right? You're thinking outside of work. You're thinking about the relationships that you have at work, moving up. Are you performing well? Do you need to learn more? For my job, I don't know about yours, but as a product manager, they expected you to keep up certain education outside of work. My boss would send me product management books to read and podcasts to listen to. And of course, you can't do that during work. You have to do that outside of work. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. I want my personal time outside of work. I don't want to do this. Or they'll be like, go to these conferences and stuff. And I'm like, I don't want to do that either. I freaking hate conferences. So yeah, there's no other way for me to get away from this career. Even if I got another job, when you said, I don't just want to start searching for another job. I was like, yeah, exactly. Because my husband asked me the same thing. Would it be better if you just got a different job? And I'm like, no, because it doesn't have to do with this job. It has to do with this career. I hate this career that I chose for myself, and I don't want to do it anymore. And I don't know how to pivot while I'm still in it. When I changed careers from art history, I quit the art history world and the art world to pivot. That's what I did. I just lived on savings and took like a coding boot camp to pivot. So you kind of have to do that. I get what you're saying. One day a week might not be enough, but if you are interested, I would definitely look at Jillian Johnsrud's Retire Often book. She just published it. I don't know. You're smiling, so maybe you've already read it, but it's very good. I read it. I had her on the show. And we actually didn't talk about the book much. We talked about her most of the time on the show. So you can listen to my episode, but it's not that good for that part of it. But her book is really good. It's literally an outline of how to do it with examples. Like, it's a very good how-to book. It's not just a like flowery language, like doesn't give you actual advice. Like, it's extremely well written. So anyway.
I haven't checked her book out. I knew she was writing it. I've heard her on the Choose 5 podcast. So I'm glad you brought that up. I should check it out. Because I think, this is something I think my hubby and I are just ready for, to do some kind of mini something, right? Just, his job is very stressful. He likes his job, but it's stressful. And we're getting older. We're getting to this point in life where it's like, why are we doing some of this that we're doing? We have enough money saved that if we just let it grow, we will be fine for retirement. It just doesn't feel like enough, which I'm sure everybody has, a little bit of that complex too. But, math doesn't lie. So the world's uncertain though, too. You look at what's going on and I'm just like, is this going to be enough? I don't know. It's tough to know what the market's going to do, and if the growth that we've all seen historically is going to be the growth that we continue to see. I don't know that I am as confident in that as I used to be. So I don't know. There's just so much uncertainty around it. But living now, man, there's so much certainty around that too, right? Just living now is doing what you can to live more fully now is worth trying to figure out. And is that kind of what she goes through in her book, is just how to navigate staying at the same job and coming back to the same job, or just any kind of combination of what your situation might be?
Yeah. So it depends on the amount of time you want to take. So there's she recommends at least a month. And so you can do like a month, 3 months, 6 months, or even longer. And so she has here's what you can do if you want to come back to your job. Here's what you can do if you want to walk away from the job. But also, she has these people who have these incredible stories where they negotiated, so one person basically was like, I'm going to step away for a sabbatical, didn't plan to come back. And the company, because he or she, I forget who it was exactly, but they were so valuable at the job that they were like, well, can you stay on for 2 extra months? And they were like, I can do that, but I'm going to do that as a consultant. And here's my consultant fee. And it was way higher than their salary. And the company did it for those 2 months. So they got a crap ton more money, put it off for a few months, and then left. And I was like, holy crap. That's
Yes.
incredible. I thought about doing that, but there was way too much emotional stuff going on for me at the time that I could barely even show up to work. So I didn't do that, but I was like, that's so cool. So yeah, she has her story, what mini retirement's meant to her, why take a mini retirement, the plan you should make for yourself for your mini retirement. She's like, don't just quit and not have a plan like I did. And then how to go about doing it. Yeah. So it's a really good book. Yeah. I recommend it very highly. Also her podcast. She has the Retire Often podcast too. So.
Oh man, I'm so over. I don't know what it is about podcasts now. I've had to just step away. I just needed some brain space from all of the FI talk and everything.
Yeah. Fair. Yeah. This one might be relevant to you. So then it might be less brain space, because I totally get it. I walked away from listening to FI podcasts because I create this one. So I'm saturated with the content. We talked about this before recording, but I still listen to podcasts. It's just completely different stuff. So yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh my God, my cat is freaking out.
Oh no. What I will say, I keep an eye on what episodes are going out, and that's Financial Feminist, Tori Dunlap. I do pay attention because she has a lot of women that come on her podcast that, in fact, one of her recent episodes was really talking about how to increase your income and change your work, your job in 2026. So she's got some super kind of FI adjacent, but very relevant content on hers. I do try to pay attention to what she's putting out, but yeah, back to your point, it's what's relevant for me at this time in my journey, which
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we've talked a lot about what your current challenges are. So let's talk about some of your current wins that you have right now.
I think for me, this is all around my focus on myself and my career and moving in a more aligned direction is how I'll put it. But my biggest win is just being open-minded to the different ways that I can look at my life, look at my career, look at all of the potential around these things. So finding the human design, just again, that lens that I am now putting on all of this has been tremendous. The clarity and why I am the way I am. Because, okay, I'll be vulnerable for a second. Something I struggle with is starting. I have all these grand ambitions, these grand ideas. I read a ton. I have so much information, but starting is something I struggle with. When I know the next step is to do the thing I've been reading about and learning about, and then it's like, hard stop, no thanks. So that's something that I've discovered as I've dug into that a little bit, that there's a reason that that's happening. And now that I'm aware of it, I can try to move forward. And so with that, just in the last couple of weeks, I've connected with a fitness coach that is kind of mobility focused, because stretching and mobility is something I really care about in terms of my health. It's not just about lifting weights and cardio and eating well. It's about everything that matters as you move forward. And I sit a lot for my job, right? So that's something that I struggle with. And I've always wanted to learn how to fight. I found a kickboxing gym not far from me. So I'm putting these things into motion that I've been sitting on forever. I reached out to an interior designer because that's just something I have always come back to from a career standpoint. I have a bachelor's degree. I have not wanted to reinvest going back to school to get an interior design degree, even though I went and literally talked to the community college 3 times about it over a course of a decade. So it's something that clearly sticks with me, right? If there's something there that I shouldn't ignore. This awareness of these things that are important to me that I've not done, that I've just not started, has been a huge flip. And it's not perfect and it's not all the things, and I'm trying to be really slow and intentional about it, but that's been a huge win. It's just doing a few things that I've let simmer for too long. So I've reached out to an interior designer. I reached out to another professional in an industry that I'm very interested in potentially doing for myself. So both of these would be avenues for maybe a self-employment type of situation. So I'm exploring that from a career standpoint. Probably my biggest wins are just starting and appreciating a new lens I can put on my life, and just a lot of awareness about what I'm doing and what I'm not doing and how to keep plucking away at moving forward.
Yeah, that's great. And yeah, getting started is always hard. Even starting this podcast, I procrastinated so much. And I know exactly why I procrastinated. It's because I was like, once I start it, I can't stop it. And that's what scared me, which is so dumb because of course you can stop it. Like, it's not a big deal. You can just, oh, this is my last episode, bye. Or just not do anymore and nobody really cares that much. But I felt like if I'm going to start a podcast, I don't want to be one of those people who stops after 7 episodes. Obviously I didn't, but it's a big commitment. I think I told you before we recorded that my first episode took me like 8 hours to edit. And I remember when that happened, I got really scared. I was like, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this. That was the learning process though. And I was like, oh, you know what? I don't have to be a freak about editing. I can just be a little bit more relaxed about it. And then it reduced down the time to edit. And then of course I hired an editor. Hi, Fritz. And it's become a lot more manageable for sure. And even now I'm talking about potentially going down to less episodes because doing 1 a week and then an extra bonus episode a month is starting to be tiring, even after quitting work. It's kind of funny because I was like, oh, I'm gonna have so much time to work on the podcast. But it's like, I added so much more to my life after volunteering. Anytime I see an opportunity to do a thing during the week that I wouldn't have been able to do if I was working, I do it. And so people have asked me like, what do you do while you're not working? And it's hard to answer that question because I'm like, it's whatever comes up in the moment. We're doing this recording, and then one of my veterinarians actually died recently, a few days ago. I'm pretty sure she was sick because she's younger. She was in her 40s. And so they're having a wake for her today at 3, and they told us about it yesterday. And so I am able to do that now because I don't work. So I can go to that. So it's stuff like that I can just do random stuff. I'll probably go to a plant nursery later today and maybe get a few plants, and then also ask if I can volunteer or work there because I'd love to do that. That's my next thing. I would love to work for a nursery. It is really hard though because they don't usually hire. The only places that are hiring are Lowe's or Home Depot garden departments, and I do not want to work for those companies. I want to work for a local one. But yeah, getting started, like I said, it's the hardest part. So I just totally tangented my way. Sorry. I'm very good at tangents. I'm very good at those side quests.
Tangents are great. They're excellent. They are needed in life. I agree with you. Starting can be really, really hard, but man, just some awareness and the ability to understand and recognize why a pattern in your life is so powerful. These feel like small wins, but man, everything starts small. Just momentum is such a thing. So I feel good about it. I'm still uncertain about the financial aspects of it, but my wins are just keep on focusing on me, and I've got to find balance between the financial priority and this other priority. So
yeah, it's awesome. So we're pretty much towards the end of our recording, but before I let you go, I always wrestle a life hack recommendation or learning that you can share with the community so they can take action today if they want to, or just hear something cool that you know how to do.
yeah, I'm a big reader, so I've had to slow down on the reading because too much information and not acting on it is not helpful. But if you're a reader, a couple of things that are just so prevalent in my life right now are work, health, and just life in general, how to just keep progressing and moving forward and becoming my whole self. And so a couple books I can recommend are on work. So Good They Can't Ignore You by Cal Newport was a really interesting read. It's a bit of an older book, but his perspective was just super interesting on work, and it hooked me in, and it was something worth considering. So if work's a focal point for you, that would be a good one to check out. On life, The Gap and the Gain. I know that this has been brought up across the FI community. It took me a long time to actually read it, but that is worth the read. Holy crap, that's a good book. And then on health, if that's where folks are at, Good Energy by Dr. Casey Means was also an incredible read. I couldn't put it down. There's a lot of science in that book, but man, it was digestible and super relevant. And she's kind of in this channel of functional medicine. So if that's where people are at in their life and their journey and looking for information on that, super good read. So those would kind of be my recommendations. And if you're looking for some self-exploration, I'm super intrigued by this human design concept and what I'm learning. So this is just where I'm at in my life right now. So those would be my recommendations today.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, Casey, thanks for being on the show and sharing your journey. This was really insightful, and it's really great to hear somebody who's also in the middle. I think you're right in the beginning, what you said. It's good to hear from people who are in the middle because I think that's the majority of the FI community, to be honest. So yeah, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Megan. It's been great to chat.
Thanks for listening to the show. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit subscribe and leave a quick rating. Also, hit up my Patreon at patreon.com/EverydayFI podcast for ad-free and bonus content coming in 2026. I'm Meghan Combs, and I'll see you next time on EverydayFI.